The idea of peace in the Republic was a carefully maintained narrative designed to prevent public scrutiny. From the outside, the Senate projected stability, diplomacy, and moral oversight. In practice, it functioned as an administrative structure that expanded control through law rather than warfare. The Clone Wars did not disrupt a peaceful order. It revealed that order had always been enforced through political pressure, economic leverage, and legislative dominance rather than genuine consensus. Beneath the rhetoric of unity, the Senate operated through policies that prioritized central authority over planetary autonomy. When member worlds resisted taxation or objected to trade regulation, they were framed as agitators. The moment dissent became organized, the Republic labeled the movement a separatist threat. Peace became synonymous with compliance, and disagreement became grounds for suspicion. The Clone Wars made explicit what had always been implied. The Republic valued stability more than representation. The Jedi's role in maintaining this system further exposed the illusion. As an independent order, they claimed to operate above politics, but their actions consistently aligned with Senate interests. Their presence as negotiators supported the Republic's authority, and their deployment as generals during the war formalized that alignment. By accepting militarization, the Jedi shifted from philosophical guardians to instruments of state policy. The war did not corrupt their purpose. It highlighted how deeply their purpose had already been shaped by institutional obligation. The creation of the Clone Army demonstrated the structural contradiction within the Republic's claim to peace. An ethically grounded government would not have relied on a bioengineered military produced without consent. The fact that the Jedi accepted the army without investigating its origin revealed a fundamental blind spot. Their willingness to lead soldiers who had no political rights showed that peace, as defined by the Republic, depended on unequal systems sustained by necessity rather than morality. The Senate exploited the language of security to expand authority. Emergency powers, wartime amendments, and temporary measures accumulated until procedural oversight no longer existed. Senators believed they were preserving order, but each concession eroded democratic function. Palpatine's ascent succeeded not because he imposed tyranny, but because every governmental mechanism he used already existed within a system that prioritized stability above accountability. The Republic's institutions encouraged silence in the name of unity. Systems that questioned directives were marginalized, and those that sought reform were delayed through bureaucratic processes. This approach created the appearance of peace, while suppressing genuine debate. The Clone Wars did not break the system. It removed the facade that had concealed its inefficiencies, contradictions, and vulnerabilities. The Jedi misunderstood their relationship to the government they served. They interpreted loyalty to the Republic as loyalty to peace, but the Clone Wars revealed that the Republic's peace was conditional. It required obedience from its citizens and action from the Jedi. When the Senate demanded a military response, the Jedi complied because they believed the alternative would destabilize the galaxy. In doing so, they tied their legitimacy to an institution that had already abandoned its founding values. The Republic's political design ensured its own collapse. By centralizing decision-making, it created a structure in which corruption at the top destabilized the entire system. Palpatine did not exploit a stable government. He exploited one that had been gradually trading resilience for efficiency. The Clone Wars exposed how quickly a system built on layers of compromise could be redirected when those compromises became vulnerabilities. The illusion of peace persisted because most citizens experienced stability indirectly. Trade continued, local governance remained functional, and the Senate broadcast deliberation as evidence of democracy. The Clone Wars brought the consequences of central authority into view by extending conflict across the galaxy. Worlds that once believed they were represented learned they were managed. Worlds that believed they were allies learned they were subjects. Jedi doctrine insisted that peace came from inner balance, yet the Order's actions rested on external stability. This contradiction undermined their ability to interpret the galaxy's trajectory. They continued to believe they were protecting harmony even as their involvement expanded the war. Their attachment to ideals blinded them to the structural faults within the Republic, leaving them unprepared for the system's collapse. When the Clone Wars erupted, the Republic insisted it was responding to aggression. But the conflict's origin, a separatist movement formed out of frustration, showed that peace had already eroded. The war did not begin because the Republic was attacked. It began because the Republic ignored grievances until those grievances required liberation through conflict. The Clone Wars simply revealed what had been deteriorating for years. The Republic's collapse demonstrated that its stability had depended on silence rather than consensus. Its peace was the absence of visible conflict, not the presence of justice. When the Clone Wars removed that silence, the structure failed immediately. The illusion could not survive scrutiny because it had been built on managing dissent rather than addressing it. The Clone Wars proved that peace in the Republic was never more than a convenient narrative. It existed to preserve legitimacy, not to reflect reality. Once the war stripped away appearance, the truth became unavoidable. The Republic had never offered harmony. It had offered order, and order enforced without understanding cannot endure. Peace in the Republic was a story the galaxy told itself to avoid confronting structural imbalance. The Clone Wars ended the story by revealing that peace built on suppression is indistinguishable from stagnation. What fell was not a golden age. It was a facade that had never been sustainable. The war exposed the fundamental instability of a system that relied on control rather than cooperation. Sidious engineered the conflict, but the conditions that allowed his manipulation existed long before. A galaxy that confuses order with peace becomes vulnerable to narratives promising stability. The Clone Wars were not an interruption of peace. They were the inevitable outcome of a political structure that had equated obedience with unity. The Republic and the Separatists both operated under the illusion of moral clarity, yet neither movement represented the ideals they claimed to defend. The clones fought for a government that viewed them as assets, while the Separatist leadership masked corporate ambition behind calls for independence. The Jedi attempted to preserve justice, yet their actions fueled a conflict designed to exploit their commitment. The war did not create hypocrisy, it revealed it on every side. The clones' existence demonstrated how far the Republic had drifted from ethical governance. They were created to serve a conflict that had not yet occurred, embodying the contradiction between the Republic's stated values and its operational reality. Their loyalty was engineered, not earned. Their sacrifice was predetermined, not chosen. The Jedi justified their use by labeling it necessity, showing how crisis reshapes morality into accommodation. The Jedi's role in the conflict illustrated how difficult it is for institutions to recognize their own entanglement in systemic harm. They believed they were defending the Republic, but in practice they were defending the continuation of a war that undermined the very principles they taught. When a peacekeeping order becomes a military command structure, neutrality becomes impossible. The Jedi's inability to adapt revealed that they had mistaken tradition for clarity and duty for justice. The war demonstrated that extremes on both sides produced outcomes that mirrored one another. The Separatists claimed to reject corruption, but depended on leaders who benefited from disorder. The Republic claimed to defend democracy, but expanded authority through emergency legislation. In both cases, ideology became detached from practice. The result was a conflict where neither side could claim legitimacy without oversimplifying the truth. The fall of the Republic was not caused by the Empire's rise. It was caused by the erosion of democratic function throughout the war. Every emergency decree, every centralized decision, and every bypassed procedure strengthened executive power. When Palpatine declared the Empire, he did not break the system. He continued the trajectory the Senate had already enabled. The war normalized the conditions that made authoritarianism acceptable. The Jedi fell because they remained focused on individual acts of violence while ignoring the structural violence surrounding them. They confronted threats on battlefields but overlooked the political shifts happening in the Senate. They fought droids while the Republic dismantled its own freedoms. By the time they recognized the collapse of democracy, they had already become part of the machinery, sustaining it. The transition from Republic to Empire revealed how imperceptible systemic change becomes when rooted in crisis. Citizens accepted new laws because they believed the alternative was chaos. Senators surrendered power because they believed the galaxy required unity. The Jedi obeyed military orders because they believed resistance would worsen instability. The war created a psychological framework where sacrifice of liberty seemed necessary rather than alarming. The end of the war did not restore peace. It eliminated debate. The empire replaced bureaucratic inefficiency with direct control. Public order returned, but representation vanished. Many citizens welcomed the transition because they equated efficiency with stability. The Clone Wars conditioned the galaxy to accept authority that promised protection, even when that authority dissolved the freedoms it claimed to preserve. The conflict revealed that societies often fear clarity more than conflict. War simplifies choices into binaries: loyalty or treason, order or chaos, republic or separatists. The illusion of certainty becomes comforting, and the nuances of governance become threats. Once that mindset takes hold, peace becomes defined not by justice but by compliance. The Clone Wars proved that when fear dominates, truth becomes a casualty long before democracy falls. The war demonstrated the consequences of systems that rely on coercion rather than understanding. Peace cannot emerge from structures that suppress dissent, nor can stability survive in environments where debate is treated as danger. The Republic viewed unified silence as harmony. The Empire perfected that logic into absolute control. In both cases, power thrived in environments where truth was inconvenient. The Clone Wars ultimately revealed that peace enforced through authority is indistinguishable from enforced order. The Republic believed that preventing chaos justified its compromises. The Empire extended that logic to its conclusion. The war did not corrupt the galaxy. It exposed its inherent contradictions and accelerated their consequences. By the end of the conflict, the galaxy understood that peace built on control is fragile. It shatters the moment individuals begin questioning the systems around them. The Clone Wars removed the facade that stability had created, revealing a foundation shaped not by cooperation, but by imbalance. The truth was not that peace had been lost, it was that peace had never existed as the Republic claimed. The Clone Wars proved that the galaxy's greatest fear was not war but acknowledgement. True peace requires transparency, accountability, and shared purpose. The Republic offered none of these. The war stripped away illusion and revealed that peace achieved through control is not harmony, it is postponement, and postponement ends the moment people stop believing in the story that kept conflict hidden.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.